But here's the thing, guys. We cannot do this by passing a law. We can't do this just by implementing a policy. What we need to do is to start to change culture in the state of New Hampshire in order to be able to do that. Because what we need is for the people to rise up and say, I will not give you my children to indoctrinate any longer. We need to make sure people have the options and are aware of what's going on in the public schools. And that is what I built my campaign platform around. Let's talk about my #1 promise that Kevin was good enough to talk about earlier. On day 1 as governor of New Hampshire, I would sign an executive order requiring that every public school in New Hampshire put a camera in the classroom to live stream to parents of children in that classroom exactly and precisely what the teachers are teaching. Now I know this might sound like state surveillance, and of course as libertarians we're not in favor of state surveillance, but hear me out for a second. Public schools have been broadcasting their classes over the internet for the last couple of years, all through the pandemic. And when public schools were forced to use the internet to teach children, we saw the largest exodus from government schools in New Hampshire that we have seen in generations, because for the first time, parents were able to look over their kid's shoulder and see the public schools are not teaching the same things that they were teaching when I was in the public schools. So we have to make sure parents have access to this sort of information. And the reality is, folks, your kids are filmed all the time in public schools. I mean, even before they're in public schools, most daycares have a camera where parents can log onto that private feed to watch what's happening to their kids in daycare, and they well should. But your kids are also being recorded on school buses. Your kids are being recorded in school hallways. Your kids are being recorded at recitals. They're being recorded at basketball games. They're being recorded by their friends when they just have their iPhones. The only place that they are not being recorded is in the place where it can actually make the most difference in the classroom, so you can see exactly and precisely what your kids are learning. And there are a lot of teachers who are behind these types of initiatives, because they think it's going to show parents how awful their kids behave when they're in school when the parents aren't looking, so they like that. But also, I've talked to parents who are saying, okay, so we're teachers who are saying, okay, so a kid is out sick, they can just go and watch the recorded lesson and not have to miss any school. That's actually a benefit. And by the way, special needs parents have been asking for cameras in classrooms for their kids for decades, because their special needs children are the most likely to be abused by the teachers in the public school systems. So if we can implement cameras in classrooms and get this information out there and make it accessible to everyone, that's when we can start to expose the public schools for what they really are. My goal is not to have public schools forever. My goal is not to institute state surveillance. My goal is nothing left than destroying the public schools in the state of New Hampshire and then building up other options.